So, next is the physical. Then we go into the intellectual. Down here. Intellectual. We come into this earth in whatever form, and then we have to develop intellectually because we are a very vulnerable species. Our skin is thin. We have no natural protections against the elements, other than maybe our skin color, the melanin in our skin, etc. We come into this earth, we cannot, as giraffes and many other mammals do, we cannot just spring up from the ground and be cleaned by our mothers and go on about our life. If we're dropped on the ground as an infant, we probably would die. So we have to develop intellectual means by which we can survive. All living species are in a quandary of survival. That's why, you know, if you grow flowers or plants, you put them next to where the sun is, they will generally go towards the sun. And if you don't water them, they will kill off all of the old flowers or leaves or whatever, and they will take that limited resource and pour it towards the young, so the young can survive and propagate more of the same species. Okay, we as human beings, being as vulnerable as we are, have had to develop intellectually. I can imagine back in the Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon people, the beginning of our species as we know today, Homo sapiens sapiens, that intellectually they had to develop because they were in an ice age. We had to develop intellectually to survive. We developed means and methods to contain water, to maintain fire, to develop clothing and projectile points like the Clovis or the Folsom Point to use and to literally kill larger species like the mammoth and the saber-tooth, etc., etc., etc. So, and by doing that, our intellectual being grew because that red meat, and I don't want to offend the vegetarians out there, but the red meat helped us grow a larger brain, which gave us more intellectual capability, a larger brain. A larger brain is very important. And we developed more of I guess an intuitive brain, as well as a creative brain, as well as a thinking brain. And now as we developed means in which we could secure ourselves, you know, and have huge, huge encampments and tribal security, or huge fences and forts and you know, brick buildings, etc., etc., etc. Through our evolutionary process as a species, we also were more clustered within those secure environments, and as a result, we became closer to ourselves. We became closer to ourselves individually and collectively, thereby creating the emotion. So the emotional quadrant, as you can tell, there's some visitors here, some tourists, come to the Red Rocks, God bless them. And we developed the emotional quadrant because we had a need to belong, not only to another, as in a spouse or a mate, but also to a group. And then we started bowling teams using human heads. I don't know if that's true, I'm just kind of making that up. So anyway, but we did create teams to do different things in sports or warlike activities. For instance, lacrosse came from Mesoamerica. Soccer actually came from Mesoamerica. Basketball probably came from Mesoamerica but in those days they probably started out using heads of their enemies, of the slain enemies, obviously, and then they progressed, or when they got away from that, they probably used hairballs from whatever was available, whatever animal was available. So that emotional need also garnered a closeness to a mate. And usually the mate was going to be the perfect mate to procreate the perfect species or the individual's offspring. That's why bigger was better in those days. There was, you know, the idea of the survival of the fittest was very real when you had these huge men that could protect the, and I don't want to offend the feminists or, you know, because I really believe in equality across the board, true egalitarianism. But back in the days of Neanderthals, Cro-Magnon, and people, they believed in bigger is better because the bigger a male could protect the smaller female, which is held true at least until recently with the Russians in the Olympics. So anyway, we developed this emotional attachment, and somehow in this became the spark of love, and which is a very ambiguous term, and I would hate to try to even define it here on this video, but I'm sure that each and every one of you viewing this video would agree that there is some relationship to love and your individual experience in relationships. So we developed an emotional quadrant. As we developed in the emotional quadrant, we began to go kind of introspect and wonder what created us, what created this beautiful red rock formation that is my backdrop, what created these beautiful trees and animals and birds singing in the trees and the ocean and all of its wonders. And we had started out originally, in my opinion, anthropologically, we were burying our dead in the cave, in the cavern, so that we didn't draw predators. Okay. From that, we would bury them in a fetal position, and then we'd put flowers on it so it would absorb the juices of the rotting flesh. And then we would bury them in a fetal position, not to take up much area, and we kept burying them like that. And pretty soon it became a ritual, a religious, spiritual ritual that we would bury our dead in a fetal position, hence, you know, flowers at a funeral, flowers, you know, wreaths, etc. And from that particular physical, intellectual, and not emotional paradigm came the idea of burying our dead spiritually from an emotional context. We love our people.